I hope you're having a good week before Christmas. I'm going to take a day or two off, so the folks at Texas Ag Today have helped me do that through their programs from the Texas Farm Bureau Radio Network. Now, here's Kerry Martin.
Hello, Texas. We are marching straight toward Christmas right here on Texas Ag Today. So jump on in with me, buckle up, and let's take a ride around the Lone Star State as we cover the most important industry in this greatest state in the nation, Texas agriculture. In the news today, the cattle market is ending the year with a bang. We ran fed cattle prices up to $140. That's levels we haven't seen in several years. Of course, we backed off of that a bit here at the end of the year, but still, cattle prices are very good heading into 2022, and we'll talk more about that to kick off today's show. My name is Kerry Martin. I'm your host, along with the largest and most experienced farm news team in the Lone Star State, and we're all standing by to bring you the latest news in Texas agriculture, from the piney woods of East Texas to the rocky ranges of the Trans-Pecos, and from the Panhandle down to the Rio Grande Valley.
We're taking the bad with the good in the Texas High Plains right now. More bad news for our wheat farmers, but really good news for our area cattle feeders. I'm James Hunt, and I'll have that story on Texas Ag Today.
Winter livestock grazing conditions being influenced by dry conditions across most of the state and wildfires in the Panhandle. I'm Tom Nicoletti, and I'll have that story on Texas Ag Today.
We'll have those stories plus Texas wildlife news and a complete look at the markets all coming up. The cattle market has certainly ended the year with a bang, with fed cattle prices running up to levels we haven't seen in several years. Texas A&M livestock economist David Anderson says one reason for the recent price jump is a tightening of supplies of higher quality beef.
I think one of the things we have going on is a little bit tighter supplies of higher-end stuff like Choice and Prime. We continue to see fewer cattle grading Choice than a year ago, and as our steer slaughter has been a little bit less than what we had last year, that means some tighter supplies of those higher-end, the Choice and Prime. And that happens to be exactly what our consumers are demanding, is they like those higher USDA quality grades, and so that's really working in our favor.
Anderson says slaughter capacity is also on the increase, and that's giving cattle feeders more leverage when negotiating prices. Long waits for parts and supplies continue for Texas farmers and ranchers. Cody Fletcher is with A-Team Feeders in Bushland, just west of Amarillo. He says the biggest shortage problem he's having in the feed yard is with trucks.
Feed trucks right now are, if you have a feed truck, don't sell it. Keep it, that's for sure. And then parts and stuff like that have been a chore. As far as our medicine and stuff, that stuff has stayed good. We had a little problem with distillers there for a minute, but other than that, it wasn't. Not so much in the feed yard, but other places we've seen problems getting things. Yeah, pickups and feed trucks and semis and parts for those have been a chore.
Fletcher says higher feed costs are also causing him to be very careful on the price he pays for cattle coming into the yard. There's some good and bad news for Texas High Plains agriculture. James Hunt covers them both from Amarillo.
Going to the bad news first, even though it will take a little more time for a full assessment, there's little question that last Wednesday's brutal winds took a toll on winter wheat in our area. Steely Fishbacher of Texas Wheat Producers says the severity of the impact varied around the Texas High Plains.
We had some areas in the further north half of the Panhandle, or maybe the northeast corner, where they had higher winds for a longer period of time than maybe what we saw Amarillo South, and so that had an impact. But I think kind of the main takeaway we have from what we're hearing from our farmers is it all really depended on a combination of the health of that wheat crop when it came into that Wednesday, December 15th, as well as the region you were in and how strong and how long those winds were blowing.
Of course, a lot of our area wheat was already in bad shape due to our prolonged dry spell. Fishbacher says Texas Wheat Producers is working with USDA to get last week's wind event qualified for assistance through the WHIP Plus program, which has already been extended to cover drought situations. It's been hard times for our wheat farmers this season for sure. But I did say we had some good news to talk about. We do, and it's this. After a fairly long period of bleak conditions for area livestock producers, fed cattle prices have gotten a lot stronger lately, and Brady Miller of Texas Cattle Feeders Association says profits per head have been improving.
We've been talking about it being in the red for quite a few months. I think last month I told you we were in the black about $50. Today we're in the black about $100 on average on a cash basis.
We'll go a little deeper on the cattle feeder situation with Brady Miller in tomorrow's report. I'm James Hunt on the Texas Farm Bureau Radio Network.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Visit Texas Farm Bureau Insurance today at tfbinsurance.com to find an insurance agent who's a true neighbor. Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
We're keeping you informed on everything happening in Texas agriculture on Texas Ag Today.
Most horse wounds will heal if they're taken care of. Dr. Bob Judd discusses how to properly bandage a wound on a horse.
Bandaging equine wounds is important for lower leg wounds. However, the bandage and products applied on the wound must be appropriate for the type and stage wound you're treating. In general, all wounds below the knee and hock need to be bandaged, at least initially. Dr. Aaron Denny Jones indicates in the Horse Magazine that bandaging allows protection from insects, tissue support, stability of the wound, and warmth. Dr. Denny Jones uses a bandage with dilute betadine or chlorhexidine on the wound and then wraps with dry cotton around the wound. This is called a wet to dry bandage, and the moisture helps to debride the wound and remove a lot of dead contaminated tissue. However, it is important to use a dilute solution of about 10 mils or 2 teaspoons of these disinfectants to a quart of water, as anything stronger will kill tissue and delay healing. After a few bandage changes, the wound will be healthier and in a healing state. You can also use SSD cream on the wound as an antibacterial under a non-stick dressing. It is important to use rolled cotton or a thick pad when wrapping these lower leg wounds to prevent affecting the circulation to the lower leg. The frequency to change a bandage depends on the wound, the environment, and the mobility of the wound site. I usually recommend daily bandage changes to evaluate the wound and then decrease the number of bandage changes after fluid production of the wound decreases. Most of these wounds need to be examined by your vet every week or so, as proud flesh is a major problem in Texas, and different bandaging techniques and different topical medications may be required depending on the stage of the wound. I'm veterinarian Dr. Bob Judd. This is the Texas Farm Bureau Radio Network.
If you plan on teaching someone to use a firearm they may be getting for Christmas, there are a few things you should do to make sure the experience is a safe one. Jessica Domel tells all about it in today's Wildlife Report.
If you plan on buying someone a new firearm or teaching someone to use one, there are a few things that you should do to ensure the experience is a safe one. Lieutenant Craig Cummings from the Texas Department of Public Safety joins us with a few key safety tips.
One of the things is to never point a firearm at anything that the person doesn't intend to shoot. It's wonderful to take someone out and show them the firearm to get them comfortable with it. But one of the things that we recommend is letting them take that firearm, hold it, get a feel for it, and then understand under very supervised conditions the trigger pull that goes into it and what happens when that gun discharges. So that when somebody is looking at the firearm, they understand that they're not to be pointing that gun at anyone, and they should treat every firearm as though it's loaded. You know, when I have my firearms, I've got 2 kids. Before I go to clean that firearm, I'll take it out and I'll rack that slide multiple times to make sure that the gun is absolutely empty. And we would recommend everyone do that to make sure that that gun is absolutely empty. And even then, when you're positive it's empty, never point it at anything that you don't intend to shoot. It takes just a brief second for that trigger to be pulled and just disaster to strike.
That was Lieutenant Craig Cummings from DPS. He encourages firearm owners to keep their firearms and ammunition safely stored out of reach of kids and inexperienced shooters. You can find some additional safe storage tips at safegunstorage.texas.com. That is safegunstorage.texas.com. For the Texas Farm Bureau Radio Network, I'm Jessica Domel.
We definitely saw a turnaround Tuesday in the agricultural markets following that big drop we had to kick off the week Monday. We'll take a look at all of Tuesday's livestock, cotton, grain, energy, and financial markets coming up next. Keep it right here on Texas Ag Today.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Visit Texas Farm Bureau Insurance today at tfbinsurance.com to get insurance for Texans by Texans. Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
We're giving you the market information you need on Texas Ag Today.
If you remember, back on Monday's trade, we had mostly lower prices across the board. A lot of pressure coming from a big drop in the stock market as well as a drop in oil prices. Well, this was a classic example of Turnaround Tuesday. Things definitely turned around and finished higher as the stock market recovered and oil prices recovered. Same story in our agricultural markets. December live cattle up $1.05 to end the day at $135.52. February up 95 cents, $136.92. April live cattle up $1.17, $141.35. The feeder market finishing higher. January up $162 at $160.85. March feeder cattle up $1.32, $161.82. April up $1.65, $165.40. We are not expecting to see much out of the cash-fed cattle market with this being a holiday week. We did see a few light sales so far here in Texas. Those cattle sold at $135. That's $1 to $3 lower compared to last week's average. Boxed beef mixed on Tuesday. Choice up 33 cents, $262.71. Select down 88 at $249.79. Now let's check the auction barns. We're walking the pens with Larry Marble.
Neighbor, when you hear auctioneer Troy sound off, it's time to head to Fredericksburg up in the beautiful Texas Hill Country to talk to my longtime friend Wayne Geiswhite. Known him for 30-some-odd years. Wayne, how was your last sale of the season in Fredericksburg?
Well, we ended up with a good run. Had 1,285 head. Larry, cattle market's about steady. Had a lot of big old fat cows. Most of them all bring in the 60s. Or some of those high-grade color cows bring up in the 70s. Bulls up, around in the mid-90s. And didn't have a really good bull today, but they still sold pretty good. Cattle market, I called it basically steady. We had lots and lots of bull calves today. Quality's kind of like last week. We didn't have a lot of real high-priced kind of cattle around today. Still sold 4 weights up to, $2, 5 weights up to, $190, 6 weights up to, we topped out at 160 something today. And 7 weights most of the 7 weight calves bring 135 to 141 or 2. Heifers, that was a little more activity in there. 4 weight heifers up in the low 160s, 5 weights up to about 150, and 6 weights, up to 135 or 6. As far as my quotes, they're not going to be quite as high, but I called it steady. But I just didn't have that kind of cattle to put on the market report.
That's the last sale of the year. Nothing next week, nothing the week after, so we're off 2 weeks and back when?
We'll come back and our first sales will be January 4th and 5th.
Tell everybody happy holidays, and remember, I'll talk to you during the holiday.
Okay, well, we appreciate everybody that's your customers. We'll do everything we can for you. Hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll be here next year.
And neighbor, so will we. We're walking the pens. I'm Larry Marble, part of the Texas Farm Bureau Radio Network. Good day to you.
Thanks, Larry. Back over to the futures market now. We're lean hogs closed sharply higher on Tuesday. February up $2.95 to close at $82.42. April hogs up $2.07, $85.57. Class 3 milk steady to higher. The nearby December unchanged at $18.46. January milk up 4 at $19.14 a hundredweight. The cotton market turning around to close sharply higher, recovering the ground we lost on Monday. As we mentioned earlier, a higher stock market and higher oil prices helping to support cotton. March cotton up 173 points to close at 107.27. May up 140 points, 105.23. New crop December cotton up 34 points at 89.91 cents. The corn market continuing to march towards $6. We added another 7 1/4 on Tuesday. On the March contract, it closed at $5.98 1/4. May corn up 7 1/4, $5.99 1/4. New crop September corn up 6 3/4, $5.67 1/4. And we had a big jump in the wheat market on Tuesday. Dry conditions here in Texas all the way up through the plains helping to support this wheat market. I haven't seen any analysts talking about the wheat losses in the Texas Panhandle from the windstorm last week, but you have to imagine that's going to factor into the picture somewhere down the line. July Kansas City wheat up 25 1/4, closing at $8.29 a bushel. July Chicago wheat up 18 1/2 at $7.90 a bushel. In the energy markets, January natural gas up 2 cents, $3.86. February crude oil up $2.86 at $71.47 a barrel. The financial markets turned it around on Tuesday. The Dow up 560 points Tuesday afternoon, 35,492. The Nasdaq up 360 at 15,341, while the S&P was up 81, 4,649. That wraps up our look at the markets, and that wraps up this edition of Texas Ag Today. I'm Kerry Martin. Hope to see you next time as we cover the most important industry in this greatest state on the planet, Texas agriculture.
Thanks for listening to Texas Ag Today. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. For more Texas Ag news and information, check out our website at texasfarmbureau.org or tfbradio.com. Texas Ag Today is a production of the Texas Farm Bureau Radio Network.
Neighbor, let's take a look at the grains courtesy of John Tuggle before we go. Milo through Corpus 12.20, yellow corn through Corpus 6.98 1/4, hard red winter wheat through Houston 9.11 1/2, and Houston beans 13.08. Neighbor, let's take a look at Texas cotton courtesy of the USDA. We moved 2,223 bale of East Texas, Oklahoma, 14,000 of West Texas. Prices from 102.27 to 104.77. That's it for this edition of Down on the Farm. Again, thanks to the Texas Farm Bureau Radio Network for allowing me a day off. Good day.